Hey, Husker fans, welcome to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast with Chris Peterson and Danny Gillette. As always, go Big Red. Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back for another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast this morning. It's been a couple of days. We took a little bit of time off there for the holiday and the new year, but it's back, and we're back. It's 2024, and Danny, how you doing this morning?
Good. It's my birthday, so there's something, but other than that, I'm doing all right.
Happy birthday, man! I didn't know it was your birthday today. How many years old are you today?
29.
29. What's on the list for your birthday? New quarterback for the Patriots?
New quarterback for the Patriots, a basketball win tonight, and a new running back and wide receiver for Nebraska would be quite the trifecta of presence. And apparently, we have some exciting wide receiver targets coming to campus this weekend.
Yeah, things have shifted up a little bit, with the transfer portal talk. So let's definitely get to that. A lot of exciting things. You mentioned the basketball game tonight. Before we get into everything, if you guys haven't done us the huge favor of hitting subscribe to the channel yet, please do that. Please hit the like button. Really is a big favor to us. So if you like the show, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of our content going forward. But you mentioned it, Danny. It's a big week for the transfer portal. It's a recruiting dead period still, but there's a special window open. I think it's January 3rd through the 7th for transfer portal players to take visits. And it's going to be a big weekend for Nebraska. We know Dante Dowdell is going to be visiting. And there's also a couple of wide receivers talking about being visiting Nebraska this weekend. Isaiah Neighbor is the next one that kind of came up on the board. He played at Wyoming previously. He was at Texas last year. This one has been confirmed, according to Sean Callahan of Husker Online, so he is coming. And then the one that's kind of up in the air is Wake Forest wide receiver Jamal Banks. It hasn't been confirmed. Sean Callahan talked to him yesterday, I believe, and he's still doesn't have a firm date. So I'm not sure if that's connected to Isaiah Nair coming here. If they're only taking one, that's my read. And I don't know if Nebraska needs or has room for two transfer portal wide receivers.
I quite honestly don't think they need more than one. I mean, they are pretty loaded at the wide receiver position. Experience is one thing, but in terms of numbers and bodies, they're pretty set at the wide receiver position. And I have to say, I think Nair would be an interesting target. His most productive year was 2021 when he recorded a little over 800 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. Last year, he caught, a pass for 14 yards, but the potential is definitely there. He's a deep threat, 6'3", 215 pounds. And say what you want, but the last transfer wide receiver we got out of Texas served us well. He served us well. So I'll be interested to see, if Nebraska can make a move on Nair this weekend. And I think that kind of veteran presence, like we had talked about, Nebraska needing in the room, I think that would be filled here.
Yeah, and like you said, 6'3", 210. He's a dynamic player. When he was at Wyoming, averaged 20 yards per reception that season you talked about, and he was, very sought after in the transfer portal. Got hurt in 2022, so didn't play, and then didn't play a lot this year. Texas is really loaded offensively, so this is a guy I think is looking to go somewhere where he can be the number one. And I'm not even sure that that's going to be him here at Nebraska, because Malachi Coleman could be the number one next year. I mean, it depends how all those guys develop. But if he comes here, Nair, that you're going to have a chance to be, one of those top three guys. I think to me, it looks like Coleman, Lloyd, and whoever this transfer, coming in, that to me feels like the three guys that are going to get like the majority of the targets. And I agree with you. Not that I'm saying I wouldn't want Jamal Banks, but I just don't want to limit the progression of some of these other guys who, I do think have earned the right to be on the field. And, it's like, I don't want Jalen Lloyd and Jaden Dawson, all these guys sitting, for a guy who's only going to be here for 1 year. And that's another thing with Banks, is a 1-year guy, where Nair has at least 2 years. And I think he could push for 3, because if he only, if he only played one game this year, your medical, he could take a medical red shirt last year, and then this year could be a normal redshirt. I'm not 100% sure if you're allowed to do that anymore, but it's possible. But he at least has 2 years here, and I think somebody that averaged 20 yards per reception wouldn't be a bad fit with Dylan Raiola at quarterback.
And you talked about, stunting growth by bringing in a guy like Banks. You also, if you get Nair, don't have to rush the development of, a guy like Ja'Cory Barney or even a guy like Demetrius Bell, who didn't see the field a ton last season. So, having that extra veteran guy, would definitely help the wide receiver room. The development of other receivers in the room is going to be important because, good programs, they get, a lot of playmakers, then they stack them each year, they develop them each year, and they don't put themselves in difficult positions to where they have to play a freshman when they're not ready. And, with this particular position group, Nebraska has the chance to do that here. And if Nair can help kind of ease the process and ease the progression of, the younger wide receivers in the room as well, not Coleman and Lloyd per se, but a guy like Demetrius Bell, Ja'Cory Barney, Isaiah McMorris, David Hall, and take the pressure off them and allow them to develop, that also puts the program in a better position long term.
It will be interesting to see if Banks does visit this weekend. I know he's visiting Michigan. He confirmed that, so I'm not. It feels like maybe Michigan might have the inside track there, but it doesn't feel like Nebraska is really super pushing for him. So I'm not sure what to make of that. I think it's just going to depend how the visit goes with Nair. I mean, obviously, you worry about the injury thing, but I mean, it is what it is, and I wouldn't. I wouldn't rule out them taking 2, but I just don't think it's really necessary. But I mean, maybe they feel like it is. Maybe they feel like last year, with Kemp and Washington and all those guys being out, maybe they feel like they could use another veteran. So we'll see how that plays out. But, I do think that they're going to get one of those guys, or at least, to me, this seems like a perfect spot for Nair, kid from Texas. He can get, some NIL. He can get an opportunity to play with a dynamic quarterback at a Power 5 school. I mean, because he was at, in the Mountain West Conference before. So I feel like this is a really good opportunity, with the way that the depth chart kind of sets up for him. So hopefully, Nebraska can get that locked down. And but for me, I guess if we're ranking transfer portal like priorities, Dante Dowdell obviously to me is still by far and away like number one. Got to get that guy like that. I feel like he can really change the offense in a big way. Not change the offense, but he's kind of another missing piece for what they want to do. And I just feel like that will help them lean into their identity even more running the football.
He's probably, my number one target this weekend too, because honestly, I think he would have the chance to be the starter as soon as he comes in. And, again, I've said this before, people have been like, oh, we have enough depth and we have enough this and we have enough that. Well, Irvin and Ramir Johnson have shown that they can't stay healthy, and I'm not knocking them. I love them. I've been very disappointed that they haven't been able to, see the field for, long stretches because of injury. It's just getting to the point where we can't count on them for a full season, and having a guy like Dowdell definitely helps the depth at the running back room, because as the saying goes, you can never have too much depth. And we saw that pretty early in the season last year. So I think, getting Dowdell is priority number one. Nebraska didn't really, hasn't really landed a, how do I want to say this? Playmaking running back in the class. I feel like, and you and I have talked about this, the running back recruiting has been a little thin as of late. Sure, they have Quentin Ives and, guys like that, but Ives is unproven right now, and I'm hoping he can be a solid player. But all that to say, Nebraska needs a running back. They haven't really addressed it, with too much depth lately with these recruiting classes, and Dowdell would definitely fill a need there.
And another thing I think we should note is that now that it's officially January 3rd, the transfer portal has closed. So unless you're a graduate, because graduates they don't have to, they can still enter I believe they can transfer anytime.
I believe so, yeah.
And so there's not very many guys on the Nebraska roster that fit that mold. That is somebody that I think anybody's going to really worry about. So nobody else is leaving this roster until, I mean, there is another window in the spring, but in terms of there's not going to be any other attrition right now off of this roster. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, if you look at teams that I think that didn't lose very many guys in the transfer portal, I mean, Nebraska's right there with Michigan as some of the lowest in all of college football, which I think says, that Matt Rule is building the kind of culture that is going to have success long term.
And, players are seeing it too. It's one thing for a coach to build it. It's another thing for players to buy in. Players are buying in as well. I mean, just look at, the All-American Bowl coming up this weekend, I believe it is. And, Nebraska has three representatives at the bowl game itself. So, I mean, Matt Rule is building something here, and I think he's building something special. And I'll be interested to watch the game this weekend and see if any of the Nebraska commits show out. And I'm excited to see Carter Nelson and see what he can do. He also has an invite to the Polynesian Bowl, so he's gonna be making the All-Star game circuit a little bit. And it just goes to show that Nebraska is being put back into the national conversation.
It's good, I think. Yeah, Carter Nelson sounded like, from the reports, he had a good day yesterday. Was with the tight ends. Sounded like they did more blocking than anything. So I think that's a positive sign. I just want to see how he does. I'm just fascinated to see how he does in like this. Not that he has never been in 11-11. I mean, he's done these recruiting things before, but those are always that's the short and t-shirt, that's that whole thing, 7-on-7 against air, blah, blah, blah. So I'm interested to see how he does in this environment. The practice generally tells you more than the game, kind of like the Senior Bowl. You learn a lot of things in practice. So, we'll be, kind of feeding those reports to you as we, come across those from the different recruiting sites. We'll put those up on HuskerBigRed.com, update you with how Carter Nelson's doing. Yeah, Grant Bricks, Gibson Pyle also there, but I think everybody really wants to see, because it's not like Grant Bricks and Gibson Pyle have, they've played their positions, whereas Carter, when he has played tight end, I mean, technically in 8-man football, it's basically tight end, wide receivers, the same thing. But, he also played quarterback and running back and did everything else. So I'm just interested to see how he does, like focusing on one position, for a week or two. And so I'm just excited to see his athleticism kind of popping off the screen.
Yeah. And, I think his athleticism is going to be something that really separates him, obviously, from a crowded tight end room as well. I mean, obviously, Nelson is an extremely highly rated recruit, but he's going to have a lot of competition at the tight end position just in the 2024 class alone. And this job isn't going to be just handed to him. And, I think on top of that, he's arriving late to campus. I think he's going to be a fall arrival, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to have his work cut out for him when he gets to Lincoln. It's not going to be a walk in the park. So I'm curious to see how he embraces the competition once he gets to campus.
Yeah, and he, they have him listed on the, on the roster. So I'm not sure about. I'd have to check the early enrollee thing, but he is 6'5". They have him listed at Huskers.com. It's 6'5", 225 pounds, and he runs
Wow.
with 40 and 4.5. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he's one of the greatest athletes to. I mean, him and Malachi Coleman, just in terms of pure athleticism, in terms of pure, just giving you something to mold a piece of clay and say make something out of this. I mean, Rule and company got a lot in Malachi Coleman and Carter Nelson. So hopefully they can make something great out of it, and hopefully they can add this transfer portal running back. I haven't heard anything about Exree Alexander. They did offer a defensive tackle this week too, out of South Dakota State, or excuse me, North Dakota State. So, there's some other guys out there. That one kind of surprised me a little bit, not just because I don't think they necessarily need, but it's always the same thing. You can never have enough defensive linemen. There's no such thing as too much defensive line depth. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles have shown us that in the NFL. So Javier Darrett is his name. I know I probably mispronounce a lot of people's names, but I'm a print journalist, so just deal with it. But he, over the course of his career, 6'2", 280, 11 sacks, 90 career tackles. Last year, he had 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. So just somebody that, could be an interior pass rusher. And I mean, because man, if you have somebody else that I feel like he could be a starter in the base defense, too, the 3-3-5. You know, not that it's a huge weakness, but just if you can allow some of those guys to focus more on pass rushing, and if you can have somebody else to rotate with, Ty Robinson and Nash Hutchmaker, I don't think that's a bad thing. But this guy also has a ton of offers, so I'm not sure where Nebraska stands in the mix.
No, it's always good to have depth. You have your two main guys, but it's always good to have depth. And, I think that, it's also going to be important to manage the workloads of Robertson and Hutchmacher. Not that they can handle it, but, to have those two as the main source of production at the defensive tackle position probably is a bit of a risky, proposition as the season gets, into the later months. So it would be good to pick up some more defensive tackle depth just for the sake of it, for depth, basically.
Yep. And then, Xree Alexander, another guy Nebraska's offered, but still nothing happening there really. So yeah, let's shift gears to tonight at the Vault, man. The Tominagas are going to be in town. I don't know if you saw that. Casey's parents are going to be there. So it's a big game for Nebraska. Indiana comes into this one 2-0. In the Big Ten Conference. This is obviously the stretch of 18 Big Ten games, and it's going to define whether we go dancing this year. This is the kind of game you got to win. You look at the Ken Palm rankings. Indiana is number 88 overall in the Ken Palm. Nebraska is 53. So, I mean, this is a game that the Huskers got to win. Of course, Indiana is a very big team. They've got Khalil Ware, I believe is his name. Again, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but he came over from Oregon. They've got another big guy. Basically, their entire front court is like 6'9" guys. So we'll see. Rink Mast is questionable tonight. Not sure if he's going to be back from injury, but it would sure help. But Nebraska, we've said it. The great thing about this team is they can play big, they can play small. So I think even without Rink Mast, I think they can still get enough bodies out there to match up with this Indiana team.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Like you said, they're big, they're tall. They have experience as we do. I think it's going to come down to efficiency. Who can limit the turnovers, the who can have the least turnovers, and who can shoot the ball well. And I know that's kind of like a no crap, like obviously, but there's been some stretches for Nebraska where they've been really efficient shooting the basketball, while others stretches have been kind of not good at all. So Nebraska needs to make sure that they get everybody involved and get their playmakers involved and make sure to hold on to the basketball in this one.
Yeah, that's going to be a big key. Turnovers, limiting turnovers, because that has been a bit of an issue with this team that doesn't really, Jamarcus Lawrence slightly out of position at point guard. He's done a great job, but slightly out of position. Just still learning. This is his first year starting, so it takes time to. Point guard is a little bit like quarterback. If there's any position in college basketball, it takes time to develop that position. So at any rate. But the 3-point shooting is a very good point in the sense that Nebraska is 11-2 this year. When they have shot 35% or better from the 3-point line, they're 11-0 this season. So, that if they make their threes, then they're a pretty tough team to beat. So, it's hard to say that, that sounds like a pretty simple thing, but a lot of times in basketball, it is, make or miss. And so they've got to make their shots, Gary, Tominaga, I mean, all those guys, Bryce Williams, and then, it's just about doing a good enough job defensively. Malik Renew is another guy, 6'9". Mackenzie Mbako, I believe is his name. He's a 5-star freshman, so he's 6'8". All three of those guys average double figures, but Indiana, they don't shoot 3-pointers. They only make 4 3-pointers a game, and their 3-point defense is not good. So basically, the formula for Nebraska is they've got to win at the 3-point line. If they don't have like a 10, 15-point advantage at the 3-point line, it's going to be tough. So hopefully Mr. Tominaga will see Casey drill a few shots tonight. I would love it, man. It's the Vault's always rocking, and for a Big Ten game, and especially that this team is going to be good, like it's not going to be easy to come in here and beat the Huskers in Lincoln.
No, and I always go back to the Purdue game last year just in terms of the atmosphere, and I remember the place was rocking and everybody was having a great time, and I think there is a real home court advantage here when you come to the vault, and it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a fun game, and just one other thing, as long as Nebraska limits their fouls and stays out of foul trouble, that that would also be another key to victory tonight. And you mentioned Indiana doesn't really shoot 3-pointers that well. That means, and I actually watched a couple of their games this year on Big Ten Network, and they drive the basketball a lot. So making sure to stay out of foul trouble and, staying on your man and not collapsing entirely in the paint is also going to be important for Nebraska.
Yeah, Josiah Leake's really going to have to play well tonight defensively. So tip off 8 p.m. Central Time for you Nebraska people. Big Ten Network. Huskers are a 5.5-point favorite. Who you taking, Danny? Let's throw out a prediction here. Put you on the spot.
Nebraska 84-77.
I'm going to say Nebraska 78-71.
Okay.
Well, so we're taking Nebraska with the points tonight, 5.5 points. So take that for what you will, gambling people.
These 9 p.m. starts for me are rough.
It's pretty late. It's pretty late for basketball. Yeah, I mean, even though it's 7 p.m. my time, and I guarantee I'm gonna have to be like drinking some caffeine. I'm an old person now, so I don't
Me
know.
too.
I don't know.
Me
I don't know
too.
how you Nebraska. Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna be. That's like 11 o'clock your time, man.
That's why I'm glad you're right about basketball, because these
That's
Big
tough.
Ten games at Tuesday at 10 p.m. are not doing it for me.
Yeah, they're tough, but at least hey, it's not on freaking BTN Plus. So I'll
I know I
take the
can watch
wins.
them. That's the other thing. I think we're
Yeah.
gonna get. I think I'm gonna be able to see the rest of these games this year, if I'm not mistaken. Now,
Yeah, I think they're all on at least Peacock, so no more. I shouldn't say that, but I don't think anymore on BTN Plus. I'm gonna be really pissed if they are. But
no, I am not a fan of Big Ten Plus, and I don't care if the Big Ten Plus people see this, but you got to switch up your formula. You got to switch up your formula because it's not working. It's not it, as the kids say.
It's too much, man. Like you got to market correct. Like $9.90. Like I'm just not gonna pay like for one team $9.99 a month. Like if it was like $3.99, maybe, and then I probably would do it. And I'm not
For like
that,
one or
that
two
might
games
seem.
that we actually want to watch.
Yeah, it's like I'm not really. To me, I just would rather. I'll just listen to Kent on Huskers.com, man, on the radio broadcast. It doesn't they show the highlights on Twitter, so it's not like I can't see what's happening. And I'm
That's
just
how
not
I
going to
follow a lot
pay.
of those Big Ten Plus games. Honestly, highlights on Twitter, and
Yeah.
so now hopefully we'll switch to Big Ten Network, and I'll I'll be able to watch some more. And yeah, I mean, now we're gonna get into the meat of the schedule. Now it's time to see. There's been a lot of pushback as to whether the team has played anybody, and they played nobody. Blah blah blah. This and that. I hear it all the time from the fans. Well, if you want them to play people, now's where it begins. And they've already had a few quad one wins, so I'm hoping they keep it rolling in conference play.
And yeah, I think Oregon State, Kansas State, Duquesne, they got some solid ones. So as long as they
Michigan
keep.
State, I think.
Yep, Michigan State.
Will be in there. So
Yep. So as long as they.
good.
Yeah, I think they've done fine. I'm not worried about the schedule at all. As long as if this team has a winning record in Big Ten play, it's going dancing. I believe that. So
makes the Minnesota loss even more frustrating last month. So
it does, yeah. But it is what it is. Let's see if they can get to a winning record tonight, and knock Indiana from the unbeaten. And then last thing, for the volleyball folks, big transfer portal edition this week for the Huskers actually came down on New Year's Day. Taylor Landfair from Minnesota. And this is already a loaded Nebraska team. They did lose a couple depth pieces in the transfer portal, but none of the starting players. And Landfair, 2022 Big Ten Player of the Year, 6'5", All-American. It was basically down in Nebraska and Wisconsin. She chose Nebraska, so another huge weapon for John Cook. And man, it really is national title or bust for this team.
Yeah, and when you look at, like we've talked about before, all the players returning, and with the addition of Landfair to the transfer portal, it's like this program constantly reloads and is in a good position to succeed. And she already brings experience to the roster, so I'm very interested to see what the volleyball program does next year. You could tell they were hungry after their loss this past season. They made the proclamation that they're going to win 3 straight titles, except maybe not as eloquently. But I love it. I love it. So we're gonna have to see, how Landfair fits in, and I think she'll do a really good job here for the program. And it's really a testament to not only how well John Cook can coach, but how well he recruits.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he did say, kind of that thing about transfers in the post game of the national title match. But this team isn't built on transfers. You got to supplement with transfers. So, it's people trying to say like he's a hypocrite. They don't really get the point of it. And Nebraska's always had transfers. So, they just don't build their entire team that way, and that's how he wants to build it. That's not saying it's right or wrong. That's just his philosophy. And Merritt Beeson was a great addition last year in the portal, and hopefully this will turn out to be just as productive. And I have to say, regardless, I feel like Nebraska is the favorite going into next season based on what they did this year and who's coming back. So, and Texas, I mean, they played the defending national champs that had almost all their team back, so that's not going to be the case next year.
And truth be told, in any sport, coaches can hate the transfer portal, but you gotta use the transfer portal in order to keep up. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You can hate the transfer portal, but also use it to keep up because you almost need to these days. So, it is what it is. That's just the way of college sports now. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see, how the transfer portal, helps all our programs moving forward. Because quite honestly, Coach Hoiberg has done a good job of using the transfer portal over the past couple seasons, and he's been able to make entire rosters out of it. So
yeah, transfer portal I think has been good, or can be good for Nebraska, especially with the way that Coach Rule's doing it. They're not building their team out of it. They're getting the right guys, and they're keeping their guys out of it. So I mean, there was a lot of guys on this team that could have went pro, that could have transferred, that could have got big paydays somewhere else, and they chose to stay here. And so, say what you want about the transfer portal, but if you got the right culture and you got the right people, then you're not going to be impacted by it flat out. So, it's just kind of one of those things. You can't cry about it. You just gotta do the best that you can to make sure that your players want to be where they are. And I think Nebraska, in terms of football, has done a great job of that under Matt Rule.
absolutely, and I think it's going to be interesting to see, how this program can continue to compete and how they adjust, especially with, it's 2024 now. I was going to say next year, but Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out. It really is.
We got to get Nebraska to be part of an all Big Ten national championship game someday.
I mean,
but
maybe this year. I don't know.
And that's something I was thinking about. We got to get rolling here, but you look at Michigan and they were struggling, and what really changed their program? I mean, they were good on defense since the day Jim Harbaugh. I mean, they switched defensive coordinator. They got a new defensive coordinator, and they switched to the Ravens defense. So what Nebraska do? We got a new defensive coordinator, not running that defense, but running a pretty damn good defense. And Michigan got a 5-star quarterback, and Nebraska's got a just like that showed. I mean, what JJ McCarthy was able to do, like those guys matter. And I think that Dylan Raiola is right in that mix. And frankly, I think that he has a chance to be better than JJ McCarthy. So, a couple of years down the road, like it's not, I know it's dreaming, and I don't want to do all that
I
stuff.
gotta get you on record here saying Nebraska Big Ten champions 2024.
Amp the hype, but I think when you have the quarterback, anything is possible, and that's what I want to say to Nebraska fans. Over the next 3 years, anything is possible.
And to tie this all in, who transferred from Indiana to Washington and is now in the national championship game? Michael Penix.
Yeah,
Michael
crazy.
Penix. And aside from his medicals, not to go off too far off a tangent, but damn, he's fun to watch. He is so much fun to watch. I'm excited for next Monday. I really am. It's going to be I think it's going to be a great game. It's not going to be 70,000 to 10 Georgia like last year, so that's a plus. But I think it's going to be a really fun game next Monday.
It is, yeah. And Penix should have won the Heisman. I got a Heisman vote. I voted for him. I don't understand why or how people voted for Jaden Daniels. Like, I get it's like, yeah, he put up great numbers, but who cares about throwing 8 touchdowns against Mississippi State? Like, you didn't play well enough against Florida State. You didn't beat Alabama. And like, man, like if Michael Penix wasn't on this team, they'd be 7-5. Like, they'd be 8 and
Yeah,
4. Like it's just, to me, it's like, he has just transcended this program. And so, this is one of those where, you always get those where after, the NFL MVP or after the Heisman, you do the bowl season and you're like, yeah, this guy should have won the Heisman. Michael Penix Jr. should have won. He got robbed of the Heisman, no doubt about it. It's probably the worst case of West Coast bias in Heisman Trophy history.
I agree. And, also, I think, Bo Nix is another example of the transfer portal working out pretty
Yep.
well in this case for Oregon. So, but my takeaway from all of this is that I think it's pretty cool you get a Heisman vote. I didn't know you were a Heisman vote. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm one of the people in Montana that gets a Heisman vote. So
Do
yeah.
you represent, your paper, or is it
Yep. Yeah, I
fancy?
represent my newspaper. Yeah.
Cool. That's really
So
cool.
yeah, it is pretty cool. So yeah, last year I voted for Caleb Williams, and so yeah, this year it was Michael Penix Jr. And people can say I'm a Michigan homer, but I didn't have. I had Marv third this year. I had Jaden Daniels number 2. Last year I had C.J. Stroud I think I had him top 3, and then I'm trying to think who I did runner up, but I can't quite remember. I think it was the TCU kid. But anyway, yeah, it's pretty fun. But anyways, Penix got robbed, so.
I agree.
We'll see how that turns out next week. Hopefully the Huskers win tonight. That's all the time that we have for today, you guys. So thanks again for joining us for another episode. Make sure you check out huskerbigred.com for all your Husker content. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.